Hi everyone, today's lesson is graphing linear inequalities. I have 4 steps written down for you that you can follow as a guideline. I'm going to run through these and then do the even examples on your homework. You're doing all of the odds for homework. All right. Step 1 is to turn the inequality into slope-intercept form y equals mx plus b if it's not already. Step 2 is to graph your line just like you would using slope-intercept form. Start with your b, move with your slope. Step 3 is to identify if it's a solid or dashed line that you're going to have. You will use a solid line if you have a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to sign, essentially anything with an equal to, just like you would have a closed circle if you were graphing on a number line. And then a dashed line if you have a less than or greater than sign without an equal to. Last step is to shade, and then you can do that doing the 0, 0 test. I'll show you what that means in a little bit. All right, let's do the first problem together. So number 2, you can follow along with me on your homework. All right, so for the first one, I'm looking at it and it's not in slope-intercept form. It could be though if I move these two around. So what I'm going to do is just switch them. Y is greater than or equal to negative x, take that negative with you. 10 is positive, so I'm going to put plus 10. Okay, now that I have this, it's easy for me to graph. So I'm going to start with my B. This is my B. And then here is my M. Now there isn't a number there. So remember, if there isn't a number, it's a 1. So it's negative 1. All right. So I'm going to start with my B. My B is 10. So I'm going to go up to 10 on my Y. And then I'm going to move with my slope. So my slope is negative 1. I'll write it on the side. And remember, if it's not a fraction, throw a 1 in the denominator. So that means I'm going to move down because it's negative and then to the right always. Okay, so what I'm going to do is move down 1 unit and then move to the right 1 unit. So my new point is there. If you want, you could draw a couple more points, down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the right 1, so that you know what your graph looks like, and then connect using a straight edge. It's kind of hard for me to do that on the tablet, but you can do so with your student ID. Okay, let me try my best. Actually, before I connect my line, look at your inequality sign. It'll tell you whether you should have a dashed or solid. By looking at my sign, I have a solid line, so that means you can just connect it all the way through. All right, so let me try to do that as best as I can. Okay, yeah, that's not working out. I'll just freehand it. Okay, so it looks like this. And then make sure you draw arrows on the ends, by the way, because it goes on forever. It's infinite. And then now shading. Okay, so for shading, you could do the 0, 0 test, and I'll show you what that looks like. So 0, 0 is right here. And I want to know if 0, 0 is a solution to my inequality. So what I'm going to do is rewrite my inequality. My inequality is y is greater than or equal to, and you can write either one. You could use the original or you can use the one that you transformed. I'm just going to use the one I transformed. So I have y is greater than or equal to negative x plus 10. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute 0, 0 in where I see y and x. So my inequality now says 0 is greater than or equal to negative 0 plus 10. Now, the negative doesn't affect 0 because we know 0 is neutral. So I have 0 is greater than or equal to 0 plus 10. Okay, I know 0 plus 10 is 10. So 0 is greater than or equal to 10. Now I know that's false. 0 is not greater than or equal to 10. So because it's false, I'm not going to shade on the side with 0, 0. That's not a solution. So not a solution. But I do want to shade the side that will give me a solution. So the part above it will give me a solution. So I'm just going to shade everything above it. Okay. So not on the side with 0, 0. If it was a solution, then I would shade that entire side. Okay, so that's how you do a problem. So again, step 1, turn your inequality into slope-intercept form. Step 2 is to graph. Step 3 is to decide whether you have a solid or dashed line, depending on your inequality. And then step 4 is to shade, and you can use the 0, 0 test. Okay, let me try another one. So number 4 is not in slope-intercept form. Do you remember the name for this one though? We did it right before all this craziness happened. It's standard form. And then if you have standard form, you can use your X and Y intercepts to graph. I'm just going to convert it into slope intercept form because I know you're all really good at that. So to convert it, what I'm going to do is move the X over. So I'm going to add it to the other side. Okay, so now I have y is greater than, I'm going to put the x first because I want it in slope intercept form. And then the 1 here is positive, so I'm going to put plus 1. All right, so just by looking at this, I know the 1 is b, and then my slope is not written down for me, but I know there's a 1 there, and if I want, I could turn it into a fraction. So this part here is my slope. All right, so to graph, start with b. My b is 1, and then my slope is positive 1 over 1. So that means I'm going to go up 1 to the right 1. Okay, up 1 to the right 1. Keep going. All right. And then if I look at my sign for this one, I have a greater than sign. So that means that I'm going to have a dash line. So if you have a dash line, make sure it looks like a dash line. So here, should look like this. Okay, you still need to have arrows on the ends. And then now the last thing to do is to use the 0, 0 test. So the next thing I'm going to do is substitute 0, 0. Again, it doesn't matter if you use the original or the transformed inequality that you have. I'm going to use the transformed one just because I'm already working with it. I have y is greater than x plus 1. Let me get rid of this little piece that makes it look like a negative. And then substitute 0 and 0 in. Okay, now 0, 0 is under my line. So if it doesn't work out, I'm going to shade on the other side. But if the inequality is true, that means 0, 0 is a solution. Then I would shade on the side with 0, 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and simplify this. I have 0 is greater than 1 because 0 plus 1 is 1. And 0 is not greater than 1. This is false. So that means where I have 0, that's not a solution. So I'm going to have to shade above, so on the other side. So everything above it is a solution. Okay, so this is my answer. All right, for the answer, I'm really looking at the graph, but you should have all this work supporting your graph. All right, last one I'm going to do with you is number 6, and it has fractions in it, which is why I like number 6. But we learned how to rearrange an equation or inequality so that it doesn't have fractions if you don't like them. And I know you don't like them, so we're going to get rid of them. Okay, so what we're going to do is, see if you remember, we're going to multiply by the LCD. Okay, and the LCD, you want to look at your denominator and look for your least common denominator. Our least common denominator here is 8. All right, so what I'm going to do is multiply each term. Okay, there are 3 terms by 8. All right, so what I'm going to get is a new equation. I'm going to write it on the right-hand side. I'm going to get my 8's to cancel here. Remember, 8 divided by 4 is 2, so that 2 is going to be multiplied to the 1. And then on the next one, I have 8 divided by 4, which is also 2, so that 2 gets multiplied to the 3. All right, so now I have, write everything together, 3y minus 2 times 1 is 2x, and then that's less than 2 times 3 is 6. All right. This is in standard form. It's not in slope intercept form, so you have to move some things around. Let's move this over. Okay, so to move it over to the other side, we're going to have to add 2x to both sides. Okay, this cancels out, so I have 3y is less than, write it in order, 2x plus 6, and then I'm going to get rid of my 3 in front of y, so I'm going to divide by 3. Make sure you divide everything by 3. Remember, if you divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, when you have an inequality, your sign changes. So now I have y is less than, 2/3 cannot be simplified, so just rewrite it. 2/3 x plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. All right, so there's my inequality. Now that it's in slope intercept form, I'm going to go ahead and graph it. Here is my b, that's where I start on my y, and then here is my slope, okay, or my m. So what I'm going to do is start at 2, okay, and then my slope says it's all positive, so I'm going to move up 2, 1, 2, and then to the right 3, 1, 2, 3, okay, and then you can do that a couple more times, so up 2, and then to the right 1, 2, 3. All right, now by looking at my inequality sign, I know that my line is going to be dashed, so again, if you're using a straight edge, it'll look much better than mine. And then from here, what you're going to do is do the 0, 0 test. So I'm just going to take this inequality that I already have and substitute 0, 0. So I have 0 is less than 2/3 times 0 plus 2. This chunk here, anything times 0 is 0. So I have 0 is less than 0 plus 2. 0 is less than, and then 0 plus 2 is 2. So if I'm looking at my inequality, here is 0, and this time it's a true statement. So that means 0 is a solution. So if 0 is a solution, then that means I want to shade on the side that has 0. So everything on the side with 0 is going to be a solution. All right, and that's it. So I did 3 problems for you on your homework. They're, in my opinion, a little more difficult than your problems that you have. So again, just follow my examples, follow the 4 steps that I showed you, and you should be good. Make sure you email me or type any questions into the class document if you have any. See you guys soon.